Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN Weekly for Saturday, April 11th, 2020. And our top story this week, employer responses to the coronavirus pandemic. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Rebecca Moore. She is the managing editor for PlanSponsor.com. Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jeff, for having me.
It's great to see you, and I'm a big fan of Plan Sponsor, the work that you and the team do, and you reach so many people. It's one of my first reads in the morning. So before we kind of launch into some of the top stories for the week, how's the team doing? How is it working remotely?
We were very fortunate that we already had systems in place for working remotely on the media team. Of course, there are other teams in our business that had to make an adjustment, but it went so smoothly.
Good. Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad everyone's staying safe, doing a little social distancing, but we appreciate you coming on the program. So, like I said, I'm a big fan, big reader. You have so many readers out there that subscribe to the newsletter and subscribe to your site. But there are a lot of things that I'm sure that are top of mind for you and the readers this week. Can you give us a sneak peek at what you and the readers have been writing about, talking about?
Yes, we first and foremost, of course, the coronavirus is top of mind for plan sponsors, for us, and for plan participants. And what we're trying to focus on are the practical questions that we're hearing that plan sponsors have. So we've done coverage about what's the difference between a layoff versus a furlough, for example.
Yeah.
What's in the CARES Act, the big stimulus bill that relates to retirement plans. We want to give practical answers because there's a lot of confusion there. We've had questions about whether these relaxed loan and hardship provisions do they have to do them, or are they optional for plan sponsors? And those are the kind of questions that we're trying to ask right now. Of course, having said that, there's still a lot going on in the retirement plan space that doesn't have to do with coronavirus. So we are also trying to cover those things and keep plan sponsors informed. One thing I will plug, if you don't mind,
Sure,
is
of course.
on our website, PlanSponsor.com, and also the sister website, PlanAdvisor.com, we have created a special webpage for coronavirus-related news, and all readers have to do is click on that, and they will find everything related to the coronavirus. It includes answers to those practical questions, what is in the CARES Act, and even product announcements. There have been many providers that have stepped up and said, we're going to waive fees for transactions due to this. So
and obviously there's a lot of, as you said, there's a lot of information flowing around. I think a lot of people are trying to get their arms around whether it's SBA loans, how do you apply, whether it's unemployment. So breaking it down in one central place certainly is important, and getting the answers and people being able to send the answers or questions in and having the team answer it is obviously very important. I love the fact, I have to just say as a opinion commentary, I love the fact that the service providers in the space have stepped up to waive fees like loan fees. Normally it's about a $50 charge, give or take, other fees to process a withdrawal. But one area, and I applaud, I think it's amazing, and I think that's just absolutely shows the congeniality and the collegial aspects of our business. One area of concern that I have just per se is extending the loan. Like we don't want, retirement savings is a hard thing to come by in general, but also being able to take a loan, for example, instead of $50,000 up to $100,000, that has the real potential to set people back for their retirement security, even though they need the money today. Are you seeing that consistently with some of your readers in terms of the feedback you're getting, or even industry experts that you're talking to?
Absolutely. One of our past Plan Sponsor of the Year winners actually emailed us and said that their firm is doing fine and they'd rather not open the door for people to take their money. And we let them know that although it's not specifically in the CARES Act, attorneys we've spoken to all agree that that's an optional provision. And what you said is something that's really on our minds right now, considering all the things with the coronavirus that may affect people's retirement security. It's not just that they may be allowed to take loans and hardships, but you have to consider things like what if they are laid off? They're not deferring anymore into their plans. What has happened in the market has affected their accounts. And we don't know for sure that this will happen, but it happened during the 2008-2009 financial crisis that employers either reduced or halted their employer match. So there's really a lot of elements that could go into hurting retirement savings. And actually, I'm working on an article about that right now, not knowing what plan sponsors can do to help preserve those retirement savings. But, just in general, I think that a lot of things with the CARE Act and what's happening right now is going to make people think going forward about plan design, retirement policy, and things such as that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And it just seems almost a month and a half ago, Rebecca, that we were talking about the Secure Act, right? You were writing about it. The team was writing about it. People were talking about it. And it's kind of been bumped aside, unfortunately, right, for obvious reasons. I mean, we've got a pandemic, healthcare, health issues. Those are important things that trump everything. But I wonder if you have a feel, just for people that you're talking to in the field, when we can get back onto things like in-plan annuities and some of the features that were part of Secure. Because at the end of the day, we're going to get back to some level of normalcy. We're not sure when, but we're going to get back to it. And so these things will, I guess, percolate back up.
Right. And there's no way of knowing when things will get back to normal, of course. But one of the things we're trying to do is to continue covering those things that plan sponsors need to consider still. I know that they're working on especially workforce issues right now, but they need to consider that there are deadlines and things to prepare for in the Secure Act. Having said that, I know that, for example, now there's distribution allowed for the birth or adoption of a child, which plan sponsors need to consider whether they're going to offer that. The thing is, there are some unanswered questions, and that's true about a lot of Secure Act provisions. And we just don't know right now, is the coronavirus related activity going to delay some of that guidance? But another thing I will point out is some of the provisions of the Secure Act are actually being reinforced, I guess you could say, from this coronavirus pandemic. The lifetime income provisions, the Secure Act provided a safe harbor for selecting providers of lifetime income products. And with the way the market has happened right now, I'm just hearing anecdotally that more people are expressing interest in lifetime income options.
Yeah.
So there's kind of an interplay there, I think, between what has just passed in the Secure Act and what has now happened with the coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certainly something for committees to talk about. Last comment or question to you, Rebecca. I mean, obviously, the life cycle of a plan is each and every year you have to do things like an audit, administrative things where you have to have a CPA come in to look at financial reports. Those things have to go on, even though we have seen delays in some of the filing requirements for individual investors. And I would think that maybe along the lines of what we've seen for individuals, we might see some delays in terms of benefit plan filings. But these are the types of things that I think, as you pointed out, that people are wrestling with in terms of these organizations, these employers. Right now it's how do you keep the lights on? How do you do the short-term things, keep the staff, pay the staff? But longer term, when you look out, you've got to do your benefits re-enrollment. You've got to do these other things.
Right. It's very difficult, I'm sure, for plan sponsors to focus on the business as usual right now which is why we are continuing to try to put that in front of them. I think that they can rely on their providers and advisors to keep them on course. I think that's going to be a very important role for providers and advisors right now, is to keep plan sponsors from getting lost in the distraction and to keep them on course with what they have to do for business as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rebecca, it's a pleasure chatting with you. Keep up the great work at plansponsor.com. Like I said, I'm a big fan, big reader, and stay safe for you and your staff, and we'll have you back on the program very soon.
Thank you, Jeff. You stay well.
Thanks, Rebecca. Great to see you. Keep up the great work, and we look forward to having you back on the program. And when we come back, we will take a look at the hottest segments of the week. So stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
The windows on our homes, they protect us and the ones we love, but they do much more. At Renewal by Andersen, making your home more comfortable is at the center of every window we make. It's why we custom build our windows in America and install them in as little as 1 day. It's why we build our frames with exclusive Fibrex composite material that's 2 times stronger than vinyl. It's why our glass helps keep your home warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and quieter all year long. It's why we stand behind every window with a 20-year limited warranty. Why not help lower your energy costs while giving your home and family the best? Call 1-800-835-6525 to schedule a free in-home consultation. Buy one, get one at 40% off with this special offer. Plus, get special financing with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 1 full year. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-835-6525 now.
Welcome back. On Thursday, I interviewed 401kplans.com founder Scott Buffington, and we took a look at how the financial advisory business and financial services could change. Let's take a look.
I think we're all adjusting to the best of our ability. Everyone is dealing with the same things at home. If it's questions from clients about how their plans are doing, how their investments are doing, learning how to engage remotely using Zoom and other technology and tools that are out there. And then those of us who have children at home, balancing between online or homeschooling and getting your work done. So we're all powering through and we'll get through this crazy time. I think it reinforces the need to embrace technology as part of your service model or business model. If you're a financial advisor or provider, an asset manager, whatever it may be, we all have to be remote, we have to be mobile, we have to have different ways to be able to communicate and conduct business. And there's no better case study for that than what we're dealing with right now. But it's an interesting time, and I think any good business person looks at every situation in front of them and tries to find some of the positive things that you could take out of this. And I think there are a lot of opportunities right now that financial advisors have that work in the retirement space, not being in the office, in being home, and maybe having less internal meetings to go to, maybe not as many meet and greets and learning about new products. And you really have an opportunity to have the capacity to talk to your clients, make sure they're okay, they have good peace of mind with the volatility in the marketplace. It's a lot of things we all like to push off, administrative things. Maybe if you're looking for a new 401k provider, you're doing due diligence on an investment to find a new investment product or a plan. Now a lot of financial advisors have the capacity to actually do that work that might have been a little tougher under normal circumstances, coming into an office every day and the regular meeting schedules that they typically have on their calendar. And I think this could really change the way we do business, or at least push it along a little more. And speaking specifically about the retirement plan business, I always like to joke around that we're the Blockbuster Video to the Netflix and other voluntary benefits, where we're still kind of in the dark ages, embracing technology for distribution and sales. And I think this could really push that a little forward. And if an advisor is going into the office every day, or they're working from home, the return on their time, the return on their investment, and their time is money, is more important than ever. So I think people are really learning that. I think they'll embrace technology. They're going to have to embrace technology if they want to survive. Everyone's margins are squeezed. So regardless if you're working from home or an office, embracing technology and learning how to live and work remotely is going to be core to surviving in the future. The retirement space, and I've been in it for 27 years, distribution and due diligence really hasn't evolved much over that time period. And you look at the average retirement plan that's out there, it may be a doctor's office, 10 participants, a few $1 million in there. It is their primary savings vehicle typically for retirement. But that due diligence from a financial advisor hasn't evolved in a long time. I mean, they're still calling their home office of their broker dealer, finding out what kind of retirement providers are out there that they can work with. They may be reaching out, finding who their wholesaler is, providing information to get a quote, waiting a few days to get a quote back. They're building their own spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets today, still to kind of compare the costs and services of a plan and maybe the investments, building their own PowerPoints. I mean, these are things that we did 20 years ago, and it's still the most common way of doing due diligence, comparing different providers and products that have been happening out there. So, 401k plans being behind the times in innovation and compared to other voluntary benefits, I think the main reason for that is it's more complicated and there's more moving parts. But what we did at 401kplans.com is we've automated a prudent due diligence process, made it digital, and you can go through that 10 to 20 hour manual process down to just a few minutes, and you could do it on your desktop or you could do it on an app. And it's completely disrupting the industry. It's changing the way that due diligence can be done. And think, if you're that financial advisor who has 10, 20 clients, and you're used to spending 10 to 20 hours per client per year, and now you can do it in a few minutes on an app. I mean, that can really just change your entire business model. You could be more aggressive. You could take on more business. And we truly believe in the value of the advice that a financial advisor gives. So let's make it a little easier for them to do business and to service their clients. And our solution is really targeted to that small to mid-market type of employer or plan. They typically don't have the resources, the expertise, or the capacity to take on 401k due diligence. So what we do, which is a little unique, is we have the advisor identify what are the needs of that specific client, if it's resources, capabilities, services, whatever it may be, and we match the appropriate providers to those capabilities or to those objectives from the client. So we don't send out a questionnaire where we wait for someone to fill it out and then come back to us. Again, from a timing perspective, that takes a long time. For more sophisticated plans and certainly larger plans, that's a very important part of the process. But for the average 401k plan out there, our service really makes it so much more efficient by matching the capabilities to the appropriate record keepers that are out there, and then let them compete for the business. And it's conceptually very similar to what you see on healthcare exchanges or even hotels.com or any other kind of comparative product site or capability that's out there.
And on Monday, I talked to the Capital Group's Sue Walton about how target date funds have weathered the financial storm. Let's take a look.
The lessons learned from 2008, what we're experiencing today in today's environment. I mean, obviously, a lot of challenges from a market perspective. Yeah. But the last thing you want in these portfolios are surprises, right? Especially if we think about the trend that we saw, in the last 5+ years in terms of plan sponsors, investors, very concerned about the level of fees that they're paying. And this movement towards, well, I'm just going to give up active management and I'm just going to focus on, the lowest fees possible out there. Now, when you're in a market environment that's going 100% up and we're never experiencing these kinds of declines or pullbacks, the expectation is I'm doing really, really well and I'm paying low fees. It's a market environment like we have today that starts to challenge that concept, that what is the value that you're receiving relative to the fees that we're paying? And certainly our opportunity from an active management perspective is not to go down as much as the market, right? To protect on that downside. And as we were already discussing previously, if we think about the lessons learned, especially for those participants and investors that are near retirement, our opportunity is to make sure that we can protect on the downside, to minimize that volatility, and really to help them maximize the outcomes over the longer term. So I think from our perspective, especially from Capital Group's perspective, yes, we wanted to make sure from a top line asset allocation perspective that we were appropriately aligned, but also in terms of the underlying investments that they perspective, maybe I don't need the kind of growth stocks that I would have wanted to have when I was 20 years old or 30 years old, when I had a longer time horizon, but recognizing that we still need equity in the portfolios or stocks in the portfolio, given that we will be in retirement 20 to 30 years beyond that retirement date. So making sure that not only from a top line perspective, things were working, but also in terms of the underlying investments, that they were also aligned to the investors' needs. And I think what we're finding in today's environment is that, some of that, transparency is coming to light today. For those managers who have been able to position themselves more conservatively, to be able to protect from the downside, to manage that volatility, those are the types of investments that are holding up better today. So if we think about today's environment, I mean, a good, mantra to be repeating to yourself as you're thinking, coronavirus, things I'm not supposed to be doing, don't touch your face, don't touch your 401k, don't touch your defined contribution or retirement investments, right? Things like that there will be a time in the short term, once we get past some of this volatility, when we start to even that out a bit, there will be an opportunity for us to review the portfolios to understand where we're positioned. And if we need to make changes at that point in time, we might want to consider that. But in today's environment, the best advice for the individual investor is don't do anything. From a plan sponsor perspective, they want to be reaching out and communicating. They want to be engaging their participants in a way that gives them some insights, some confidence, some perspective, that we can share with them more the facts, as opposed to they are worried day to day in terms of maybe their long-term employment opportunities, the security that have, from a household, from that perspective, their health, their environments, their communities. They're worried about those things right now. Let's give them some comfort from a plan sponsor perspective that, yes, we've seen market declines historically, and we've come back for them, right? We've seen the market come back. It has this ability to do that, even in some of the most significant downturns. That from a timing perspective, even though you want to touch your 401k or touch your face, don't do that, because you never know. You might be able to make a change now, get out of the market, but then you don't know when's the right time to get back in.
Yeah.
Right. And even missing a few days or even a year in terms of that market recovery could make a significant difference in bringing your portfolio back where it needs to be. And really just giving them more information to take the emotion out of some of these decisions that people are making today. Where we were headed before this crisis has come in front of us is really thinking more holistically about what defined contribution and target date fund investments need to do. They need to be a vehicle that helps to really drive the best outcomes from a retirement perspective. Mm-hmm. That means not only the consideration of building wealth during that appreciation phase while I'm saving, while I've got a longer term time horizon from an investment perspective, but also as I transition into that spending, into those retirement days where I'm starting to look at that portfolio and trying to manage that in terms of my longevity, making sure that I don't run out of money, that making sure I can retire in a manner as well as in a time frame that I think is appropriate for me. So it's really going to be a different look at how we evaluate target date funds, not only from the perspective of the saving phase, but also that post-retirement perspective. What do those investments look like? What are we assuming in terms of the ability to spend out of those portfolios? And how is that going to contribute to the retirement security that we have for participants? So not only helping them build wealth, but how do we help them preserve that wealth over the long term to make sure that those investors can retire in a way that they need to? And certainly if we think of that evolution in the space, you said up front, the target date funds they're good, but they're not perfect. And so we started to see plan sponsors really evaluating, are there other investment alternatives that we should be considering for that post-retirement scenario? This consideration of retirement income, what does that look like? Is it a target date fund? Could be, depending on how that target date fund is built. But maybe I need to complement those investments with other retirement income solutions. And I think that's where, once we get through this, and like you said, we know we will, we can refocus our attention back where we were starting to head in terms of the security for retirement in terms of that spending phase. And I think the goal of the target date funds was really to manage for that simplicity. So as easy and straightforward as we can make it for an individual participant, we're going to get them 90% of the way there or 80% of the way there. So for the majority of folks, that is probably an easy, appropriate choice. I think when we start to add different flavors and layering on, that's where things start to get a little bit more complicated. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it isn't a single solution for everyone. So can we complement that with other vehicles for someone who's more engaged, for someone who is more active and has maybe a more specific financial situation where a managed account, as an example, could be an appropriate solution? Maybe that's something we consider. There is this conversation around the dynamic qualified default alternative, meaning in my earlier years, maybe a target date fund is going to be the most appropriate, like the broad financial needs of those individuals, pretty similar, pretty homogeneous, very similar in terms of their needs. But as I'm nearing retirement and into retirement, maybe those financial needs have changed. Yeah. So maybe there is something I need to consider in terms of, getting out of a target date fund into something else. And maybe that something else is a retirement income solution. Maybe that something else is a managed account solution. It really just depends on the population and the objectives of the plan sponsor. So I think there's more to come on that, and that's a space that will continue to evolve.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly, but we're not done for the week because tomorrow, Sunday, I'm joined by members of academia, the media, and financial services as we analyze all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more. You're not going to want to miss the show. We've got two very special guests. I'm not going to tell you who they are. You're going to have to watch. So until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-757-1451. That's 1-800-757-1451.